we will start traveling. Vamos a grabar. Y muy buenos días. Buenos días a todos y a todas. Y espero que todos estén bien. I hope you are all well. We're going to start off with a quickie question, which was a great question. Gracias, Marcos. Thank you, Marcos. We had a question, and some of you, if you listen super carefully, and this is why it's a great question, because it shows me you were listening super carefully. Marcos had a question about not really the meaning behind, but an odd thing, and it is kind of an odd thing from this video. Gracias, el video de gracias. And the question was, what was that? It sounded like sometimes I did not hear an S with muchas gracias. I heard the mucha, but not the muchas gracias. That is not, your ears are not playing tricks on you, Marcos. You did hear something there. You did indeed. And I am going to tell you what that was. What that was.
Glad to know I haven't totally lost it just yet.
Okay. That guy you saw, even though he is right now physically in Spain, es de Venezuela. He is from Venezuela. And anytime you get people that are either smack in El Caribe, right, whenever you get people who are right in the Caribbean, or really Venezuela and parts of Colombia sometimes fall in this, but especially Venezuela in that rim around the Caribe area. Often you get this phenomenon, which is purely a pronunciation thing. Se comen las heces. They eat their S's. And I that's a very unscientific term, which my beloved instructor from Cuba used to say. Because he is from there, you get lots and lots of things with different accents, which is why essentially it is a good thing to hear different accents. I'm going to play you one other little snippet, because I think I promised you guys and then I did not follow through recently. If you speak with people from Cuba, from República Dominicana, which has been like a popular vacation area in the last few years, and often from parts of Venezuela, this kind of aspirating, or like the S kind of gets buried down here. That's a thing. And just so that you hear it a little bit, these two gals, I'm going to show you another example of that. The two gals you're going to see on the screen. La chica a la izquierda es estadounidense, pero vive en España. She follows a Spanish Castilian accent. She is a transplanted Texan who lives in Spain for 4 years, and she speaks Spanish extremely well. Y su amiga a la derecha es cubana. Her friend on the right is a Cuban. And I want you just to hear how different their accents are. Oh, can I get? Yeah, I think you need these on. They're going to talk fast, but so don't listen to understand everything about the conversation, but to listen to how different the accents are because of regional differences.
Número 3. Se le va la pinza. Sí, creo que eso sí sé que es. Eso sí, ¿no? Sí, que se te va la pinza es como, en Cuba decimos como, creo que sería como se te fue la olla, como que te alteraste, te pusiste mal o loco.
Okay. Cuando la escuchas, la chica a la derecha, when you hear her on the right, you get this very sort of subtle thing of some of those S's almost get stuck or buried, kind of swallowed. And this is just part of getting used to accents from different countries. You know, it would be like somebody from the Bronx listening to somebody from Georgia, you know, maybe. Yeah, we have there are these little hitches and accents happen. So sometimes when you hear somebody swallowing their S's, think about Caribbean area. That happens. Okay. But the point of the big gracias video was to remember, make it a reflex that it's either, you know, gracias by itself or gracias por, thanks for, and then you name the thing that you're thanking them for. Gracias, por ejemplo, gracias por la llamada, thanks for the call. Gracias por tu ayuda, thanks for your help. Gracias por todo, thanks for everything. Or it might be gracias a, ¿sí? Tengo buena computadora. Tengo una computadora muy buena. Gracias a mi esposo. I have a really nice computer thanks to my husband. So, you know, gracias a, thanks to, and then a person, or gracias por, thanks for. But make gracias por a reflex thing, because people don't ever say gracias para, thanks for. Okay. Bien? That was just a point of our gracias video. The point of the gracias video you had last week was to understand that certain things pair up with gracias, and it's usually either gracias por or gracias a, thanks to somebody. And I think gracias por is probably more common. Okay, bien. Otro video. Our other video, I want to see if you had any questions about this one, la video de Michelle con, and I want you, we had a couple of things, and what we want to show with all these videos is that we're always listening for little structures that, you know, are impossible to isolate. But we do study them in isolation sometimes, but when you hear them, you'll always hear them only sprinkled in here and there when appropriate. And you heard some of our some of our stem changers in here, and also you started to see some reflexives, which are going to be our big topic for today. No quemarse is different from just quemar. So, okay. Alguna pregunta? Any question from that little cooking video that is left over, that any little thing you didn't catch, or nada? Nothing there? Okay. Bien. That's a pretty slow video, but I'm going to make a little suggestion. Go back this week and listen to the breakfast in Mexico video one more time. And, you know, you hear verbs like hervir, hirviendo, boiling, and you get some stem changers. She used the verb mover, and that had a UE, move the, when she swirled the oil around in the pan, you know, we would say that you maybe coat the pan, yeah, but you know, in Spanish, and I'll show this again because it shows how you hear these stem changers here and there. Movemos. So I'm just going to play that little snippet
ponemos aceite de aguacate.
We put avocado oil in.
Movemos.
We move it around.
Esperamos.
And, we would say you kind of coat it maybe, but you move the oil around in the bottom of the pan. You know what that
Ponemos
is.
la salsa en el sartén. Y movemos con una cuchara.
And we move it around with a spoon. And that verb mover, we're going to come back to in a bit.
Ahora, esperar a que hierva.
And you wait for it to boil. A que hierva, and I know it should be hierve, but we wait for it to boil. It's not boiling yet, so instead of being hierve, it's hierba. It's a subjunctive. Some of you have seen some of that in some more advanced sessions and some not. But the important thing here is the hierba, que hierva, even though that's a subjunctive. Normally it would be hierve in indicative, but the IE. And we don't pronounce the H, of course, with that verb. Hervir, which is an E to I stem change. So here it is hierba, but in indicative, it's always hierve, means that something is going to boil. Yeah. Okay. Bien. So you'll always see these stem changers sprinkled around where they are necessary. But you won't hear them 100% straight all the way through. Okay. Fantástico. A ver, we're going to move on. Our big thing for today, our big point to practice and ponder and think about and use here and there is, for some of you brand new, for some of you a review, is what we call reflexive verbs. But the big takeaway is, that word se, S-E, se. And se actually has probably about that many uses in Spanish. I know, yeah. When you hear se, se strikes fear into the hearts of many Spanish learners, because se can be used in many to create many different nuances with what you're expressing, the idea that you are expressing. And we're going to touch on at least one of those, which is the reflexive today. And se has more than one use. I had sent you a video on, well, at this information, it has both a video on se, reflexives, and then it has like, oh my goodness, look at all this information. It gives you all the pronouns. So reflexive verbs are verbs that have to be used with a pronoun. Most of our verbs in Spanish, we really should get in the habit of, at least 60 or 70% of the time, you don't use a subject pronoun. Subject means telling who's doing the action. So instead of saying yo cocino, I, used with cocino makes it kind of more forceful. Most people will just say cocino todos los días. I cook every day. Yeah. Yo cocino todos los días sounds like I'm kind of like I'm the one who's doing it, doggone it. But most of the time we drop the yo, right? So subject pronouns like yo, tú, él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes, nosotros. Frequently, unless we need to really, really be emphatic, or if we really need to designate a specific person in third person, we drop them. These little pronouns that you see here on the screen are what we call reflexive pronouns, or can be, because me, te, se, nos have many functions. They can be reflexive, they can be direct objects, they can be indirect objects. But as reflexives, me, te, se, nos, se, again, because se is used across the board for third person, whether it's the ele a usted form or the eu seas ustedes forms, they all use se. These are what we call reflexive pronouns. If you have a verb that is truly a reflexive verb, you cannot skip these pronouns the way you are expected to skip yo, tú, él, ella, usted. You cannot skip these me, te, se, nos, and se. You cannot skip them because if you do, it changes the meaning of the verb. Okay? And like a lot of the pronouns that we use, they come in front of the verb. So where to place these little words, me, te, se, nos, and se? Well, usually if you're just talking about somebody doing something as a habit or doing something right now, it'll be in front of the verb. There are times when we attach them to verb forms, but for plain old vanilla kind of flavor verb, it's in front of the verb. Tú te afeitas todas las mañanas. Afeitarse is to shave oneself. So if you want to say you shave every week, tú te afeitas todas las semanas. You shave yourself every week, meaning you don't go to a barber. The barber doesn't shave you like in the movies of the Old West. Yeah, it's you just shave yourself. Yo me despierto a las 6 de la mañana. I wake up. Nobody else goes and grabs my shoulder and jostles me awake. I just wake up. Me despierto. Okay. Okay. But se can get very, very sticky in a big hurry. The benefit of this page, and again, I will send a link of this again in, is that it kind of shows us a whole bunch of verbs that you might hear with se. Whenever you see or hear somebody using the infinitive with a se tagged onto the end, that is a signal that it is a reflexive verb. Reflexive means that the person who does the action also receives the action of that verb. Okay. Se can also have what we call a reciprocal effect. So another function, because I told you there are about uses of se, that many, maybe 5 or 6 uses of se. In addition to being a reflexive verb, it also might be what we call reciprocal, meaning people do things to each other. So, por ejemplo, conocerse, you might say, wait a minute, conocer means to know a person or to know a topic super in-depth or to be familiar with a place. Conocerse means for people to know each other. And Spanish won't bother most of the time with extra phrases of each other. That se will take care of that work, okay? Or saludarse, to greet each other, because obviously you don't say hello to yourself. Saludar is to greet, but saludarse, besides being reflexive, can also be what they call reciprocal. Say hello to each other, okay? To acknowledge each other, to wave hi. That's saludarse, yeah? Bien. Yeah, to hit each other. Well, okay, if you've got kids, maybe little kids who get into little fights, you might hear that. But in any event, reflexives are special constructions. So let's take a look at those and we're going to practice them. We're going to take a look again at some of this idea of how is a verb, how does a verb's meaning change when moving it from or using it as just by itself, as opposed to using it as se, right? Remember, se might be a reflexive, it might be a reciprocal, but in this case, it is a reflexive to call oneself. Llamarse, to call oneself, meaning that person's name is. Yeah, and my name is, me llamo. It would not be natural for us to translate that in English as I call myself. That is not I call myself is not a natural phrase that we use in English. You know what it means, I call myself, but you don't hear people using it a lot. But in Spanish, that is the way it is expressed. And the way we express that more commonly in English is my name is. But llamarse, technically, literally, is to call oneself. Llamarse. So you're giving your name to somebody when we use llamarse, right? Okay. Versus llamar, just to call, meaning, hey, I yell out at somebody, right? Or to use your phone to call someone. So that is an example. And the difference between despertar, se, to wake up, meaning you just yourself wake up, open your eyes out of a sleep, versus despertar, somebody else wakes you. Maybe your alarm clock goes off and wakes you. Maybe your kid wakes you. Maybe your fur buddy jumps on top of you in bed and wakes you up. That's despertar. All right. And the double whammy is there are a number of reflexive verbs that also wind up being stem changers as well. So, ouch, double whammy, double whammy. But then we have other things like levantar versus levantarse. Levantarse is to get oneself up in sitting up instead of laying down, sitting up or standing up, right? Levantarse, to get up. Versus levantar, just to lift something, to hold it up in the air, to push it up, levantar, yeah? Some verbs you just always hear as reflexive. Ducharse, you just always hear as reflexive because you really don't frequently give a shower to somebody else. So, ducharse. Yeah, but a lot of these might have double meanings. Bañarse is to take a bath. Bañar, you bathe somebody else. You could be bathing a child. You could be bathing a pet because your doggy got into something really dirty and you're giving your dog a bath. That's bañar without the se. And then this one, which is super easy, lavarse, to wash oneself, meaning to wash a part of your body, whether it's your face, your arms, getting the sunscreen off of your arm, lavarse las manos, washing your hands, versus washing an item like lavar el carro, lavar, without the se. Bien. Otro ejemplo, vestirse, to get dressed, versus vestir, to dress somebody else, usually our little ones, because they're too little to get their own clothes on in a neat or fast fashion. And another verb which is almost identical in meaning is ponerse, to put something on your body, generally for clothes, but it could also be sunscreen, it could also be perfume. Yeah. Anything you put on your body is ponerse. Versus poner, which is just to put something in a place, to set it down. Ponerse is setting something down. Okay. We even have, as far as arreglarse, to get oneself ready, versus arreglar, to fix or arrange something. Okay, bien. So making verbs reflexive changes that meaning, right? Peinarse, to comb one's hair. Peinar is what happens when you go to a salon and they do that to you. Same thing with the verb for brushing as opposed to combing. Cepillarse, to brush one's hair out, versus cepillar, to brush. And you sometimes hear cepillar with cepillarse with brushing teeth as well, although cepillarse and lavarse are both used for teeth. Depending on where you are, people, you like using the idea of washing your teeth because you're cleaning them out, right? Or cepillarse, brushing your teeth. Yeah. So we have all these wonderful verbs that are what we call reflexives. Okay, a ver. Adelante, adelante. So we need two parts for all of these things that are called reflexives. And the easy way to tell that a verb is reflexive is that the type of pronoun will match up and be in the same form as the person doing the action. So in other words, me always has to match up with a yo kind of verb. Okay. The te pronoun always has to match up with a tú kind of verb, right? The nos pronoun always has to be paired up with a verb that's in a nosotros form. So the pronoun and the verb will be, they correspond, right? They don't talk about different people. They talk about the same person. So that is the point of that little slide there. Bien. Let's take a look at, you saw this verb in the video where she moved the oil around in the pan. Yeah. Por ejemplo, mover. Mover, mover. Uy. Mover. And this also happens to be a stem changer. It just is. Okay. Mover means to move a thing. So, muevo, mueves, mueve, movemos, mueve. Por ejemplo, for example, if my phone starts ringing and, oh, shoot, it's a spam call coming in. I could say something like, muevo el celular más allá. I'm moving the cell phone further away, right? But moverse changes the meaning of that verb. It changes it more to, I move my whole body. Or we in English probably would express that most of the time with these ideas of move around or move over. And I'm going to show you this in a little sample video. But the way that will pair up is to put these little reflexive pronouns in the corresponding, meaning the same kind of form. So, me muevo, te mueves, se mueve, nos movemos, os movéis if you're from Spain, but we don't practice that one. Se mueven. Bien? Okay. So, moverse changes in its meaning from mover. And we're going to take a look at how that happens. ¿Cómo pasa aquí? Okay. Por ejemplo, aquí, here.
Significa cambiar un objeto de un lugar a otro lugar.
Changing an object from one place to another, that's mover.
Por ejemplo, voy a mover la planta de la mesa a la estantería.
Okay, so I'm going to move the plant from one location in the house to someplace else. And notice, this is not the same thing as llevar. Llevar is to take something and move it to another place also, but mover is you're just shifting the location a little bit. You're not picking it up and taking it to somebody. That's llevar, right? But mover just means I'm kind of pushing it or placing it someplace else. Okay, muevo la planta, muevo la planta. And now you're going to see moverse. Cambiar de lugar una persona a sí misma. A sí misma means doing it to oneself. And moverse is more like move around or moving your body around.
Es un verbo reflexivo y significa cambiar de lugar una persona. Yo me muevo a mí misma. Por ejemplo, voy a moverme de un lado a otro lado.
I'm going to move from one side of the room to the other, from one seat maybe to the other. Oh, you know what? You're sitting in a movie theater and somebody wants that seat right next to you, or they want your seat and they would like you to slide over. Yeah, that's me muevo. Ah, me muevo al otro asiento. I'll move over to the other seat. And that means I'm picking my whole body up and I'm moving my whole body. So we might say move around or move over, or to move just move your whole body. I think she gets,
Mudar.
Oh, no, she does not get this one. Moverse can also be used with that idea of when people dance. You know, if you think somebody has got great rhythm, they really got the moves when they dance. Ah, te mueves muy bien. Wow. You move well. Yeah, the dance thing. That's moverse also. I'm going to show you otro ejemplo. Hay otro ejemplo. ¿Dónde está? I've got to find my exact thing. Moverse might be just kind of in the moment or spontaneous thing, perhaps. I'm looking for my exact example here. Oh, okay. Un ejemplo más. One more little example, just to give you a feel for how these things change with reflexives, how they can change. Okay, mover objetos o personas. You might move a child into a different seat. You move a thing to another location. Partes del cuerpo, moving a part of the body. Suele indicar que es voluntario. Mover without the se. Something is consciously done. Something is consciously moved on purpose. Voluntario, for a reason. You did it voluntarily. But moverse would mean your whole body, moving your whole body, or an object moving around. And I think we're going to get the example here.
El caso del avión. Imagina.
Here's another way you might hear moverse. El caso del avión, the case of the airplane.
Que estamos en un avión con muchas turbulencias y entonces decimos, el avión se mueve mucho.
El avión se mueve mucho. Besides moving around like dance moves, moverse can be this. This is involuntario. This is not voluntary. This is a plane going through turbulence. El avión se mueve mucho. Wow. Oh, the plane is moving around. Yeah. Meaning it's kind of because of an oops with the air pockets. Yeah. It's shimmying. Yeah. So moverse. Just to give you an idea of how these reflexives can change the action of the verb. And notice, it's curious, this is not 100% of the time, but quite often in English, we wind up pairing up some kind of little preposition with a verb to do this. So we'll say, the plane moved around. And you don't really mean necessarily that the plane is going in circles, but yeah, it gets that idea of, you know, shaking movement when we say that word around. And yeah. Okay, un ejemplo más, one more little example. And this is short, not a video. Another verb that winds up being used in a reflexive sense a lot is the verb dedicarse. Dedicarse means to dedicate oneself. Wow, that sounds really formal. But dedicarse is a verb that is used to say, what do you do for a living? And that whole chunk of words in English, do for a living, meaning how do you earn your money? What profession or job do you work in? And it is often used as a reflexive verb. ¿A qué te dedicas? And that means the same thing as ¿cuál es o era? If we put it in past, that would just mean was. ¿Cuál es tu trabajo? What's your job? What's your work? What's your line of work? And quite often we use a reflexive verb. It is not unusual to ask it as ¿a qué te dedicas? Literally, what do you dedicate yourself to? So these little reflexives are going to come up all over the place. All over the place. And we should get used to them. Bien. Okay. Any quick question on how we pair up the pronoun with the verb? They have to match up, right? It can't be something like, me llamas mañana. Are you calling me tomorrow? Me llamas. The llamas means you're calling, and the me means I'm receiving the call. That's not reflexive because the me pronoun does not match up with a tu verb, llamas, right? You're calling me, meaning I would receive the call, but me llamo Marilyn, my name is, and then I give my name, right? That's the reflexive. Bien. Okay. A ver. We're going to practice some of this. ¿Dónde? Aquí. Here we go. Okay. Now, some verbs are strictly like you do it to yourself. Okay, like these. These are common reflexive verbs. They're often explained as, oh, these are activities that we do in the course of our daily routine to get ourselves ready for the day. Reflexives can be more than that, but they're often in that category. Okay, so levantarse, get up, despertarse, wake up, sentarse, to sit down, ducharse, take a shower, bañarse, take a bath, peinarse, comb one's hair, cepillarse, to brush, whether that's your hair or your teeth, secarse, to dry yourself off when you get out of the shower or out of the bathtub, lavarse, to wash, and notice, often we say wash up. Hey, wash up, kids. Yeah, up, really? Yeah, but to wash oneself. We don't really in English express that quite so often as wash oneself. It sounds sort of formal. Acostarse, to go to bed. Maquillarse, to put makeup on your own face if you're a lady. Lastimarse, to hurt oneself, meaning not that you intend to hurt yourself, but, you know, you had a sport, to have an injury, yeah? Lastimarse, to hurt oneself, to have an injury. You know, hurt your knee, hurt your hip, hurt your back. That's lastimarse. Yeah, indicates an accident of some sort. Llamarse, Ponerse, to put something on one's body, often clothing, but it can be other stuff. Quitarse is the opposite of ponerse. Quitar means to take something away. When we use quitar without the se at the end, it means to take it away. Okay. A famous thing that a common thing that teenagers will say, mi papá me quitó las llaves del carro. My dad took away the car keys, meaning that you're grounded and you haven't got the car. Me quitó, right? Or me quita, takes something away from me. But quitarse is to take something off. So like ponerse is to put it on. Quitarse is to take something off, kick off your shoes, take off a scarf, take off your coat, lo que sea, whatever it may be. Okay. All right. One thing I want you to keep in mind as we go through the reflexive review and first time through it for some other people. Not all reflexive follow this idea religiously of doing the action to oneself. Some verbs just are reflexive, just are. There are certain verbs you only hear in the sense of they are always reflexive, like ducharse. You really don't hear it as just duchar. It's almost always ducharse. Some verbs just are reflexive. And so keep in mind that some verbs won't necessarily be this strictly doing the action and also receiving the action of that verb. Some verbs are just always reflexive. And some examples of are these. There are some things, there are some activities that just wind up being reflexive. Quejarse, to complain, and we use de with that. Divertirse, to have a good time, literally to enjoy oneself, to divert oneself. Yeah. Comerse means to gobble something up, to eat it really, really fast, to eat all of it. Beberse sometimes goes the same way. Beberse, like if you want to say somebody is chugging down a drink, you know, yeah, chug that beer. That's beberse. So se does lots of odd little things to verbs. Preguntar means to ask a question, but when it becomes preguntarse, it means to wonder, because literally you're asking yourself, when you ask yourself, you're wondering about something, right? Darse cuenta de, darse, combined with the little extra chunk of cuenta de, means to realize, meaning something just dawns on somebody. Wow, it just hit you up in the gray matter there. Graduarse, to graduate. You know, we don't really think of it as doing it to yourself, but it is just reflexive. Jubilarse, to retire, is just reflexive. That's just, eso sí que es, it's just the way it is. Okay. Also some other ones that might not make too much sense, but you often hear these as reflexive verbs: equivocarse, callarse, olvidarse, irse. This is a very, very important verb to be able to use, and it's super easy to use because you know how to use ir. Voy, vas, va, vamos, van. But with the se at the end, it means to go away. They're taking off. They're just getting out. Irse is very much like salir. Yeah, to leave. Irse means somebody's just, they're out of here, right? That idea in English of saying, hey, I'm out of here. You know, somebody's going away. That's irse. And for some reason, morirse is almost always used reflexively. There's no reason for that. Okay, vamos a ver. Let's take a quick look. Let's look at this together. We're going to see Bum, 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 bum. Can you match up the verb with the action? Can you just match up the verb without using it yet? Ducharse. If I have to pick this up and move it someplace, where am I going to pick it up and move it? Which picture? Uno, dos, o tres?
Tres.
Ducharse.
Tres.
Tres. Bien. Ok. Vale. Bueno. A ver. Sí. Ducharse. Why won't it pick up? Let's try a cut and paste. That should work. Oh, because it's going behind the picture, I think. Okay.
No, it's way up on top. And left.
Oh,
Just get out of.
aquí. Oh, gracias. Wow. Wow. Okay, vale. Let's just move it on down. Sí, ducharse. And vamos a cambiar el color un poquito. Sí podemos, sí se puede. Yes, you can. Sí, ducharse. Ok, vale, bueno. Despertarse.
Dos.
Dos, sí. Despertarse, to wake up, right? A ver. Bien. Ay, wow, it's just not letting me move these around like I had hoped. Ok, despertarse. Y, hay dos, levantarse y sentarse. Well, they're both obviously.
Well, yeah, one's sitting, one's getting up, standing up.
Eso sí. Okay, vale. Bien. Okay, so we've got sentarse, which also winds up being a stem changer as well as a reflexive, and levantarse. See? Okay, bien. Let's see if we can use them in an actual sentence. Bien. Okay. Por ejemplo, en la primera foto, in this first picture, ¿cómo se dice? The man sitting down with his dog.
Sí.
¿Cómo se dice? The man sitting down with his dog.
El hombre se sienta con su perro.
Sí, el hombre se sienta con su perro. Bien. O el hombre se sienta cerca de o enfrente de la computadora, enfrente del portátil, laptop. ¿Sí? Bien. Ok. Ok. A ver. ¿Cómo se dice? How would we change this to say, the woman stands up at her desk?
La mujer.
La mujer
Se levante.
se levanta. Sí, se levanta de su escritorio. De su escritorio. She stands up from her desk. Okay. A ver, despertarse. The little girl is waking up.
La niña.
La niña.
La niña se despierta.
Se despierta. I also need that little IE stem change. La niña se despierta. Con su osito de peluche. With her
Teddy bear.
teddy bear. Osito de peluche es teddy bear. Osito, her little bear. ¿Cómo se dice? Ferris Bueller takes a shower. Ferris Bueller Se ducha, se ducha. En una famosa escena de la peli, short for película, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yeah. Bien, bien. Okay, perfecto. Perfecto. And of course, for those of you who move on, these reflexives could be talking about right now, presente, that's what we're doing right now in this class. But as one moves on, it could be used, reflexives can be used to talk about things in the past, right? And just to give you a flavor for how that would sound different, it would be el hombre se sentó. He sat down instead of he is sitting down. Se sentó would make it a past, right? The woman got up. We can use these reflexives also in past. Se levantó. That would make it past, right? Ferris se duchó. He and with a punch at the end makes it past, right? La niña se despertó. Okay, so we can use this in any tense, right now, in the past, in the future. We can use it, futuro, future. Let's say, because it's easier for you to use future, we can use this with ir a levantarse, is going to stand up. Let's say you've been sitting for 5 hours and like, shoot, I gotta move. I'm getting stiff, right? I can use it in this structure to talk about what will happen, okay? And to say I'm going to get up, it would become me voy a levantar. Ahora, I'm going to get up now. Me voy a levantar. Bien? Me voy a levantar. Or voy a levantarme. You've got a choice. Voy a levantarme. So when we use these reflexives, with a two-verb structure, I can put it in front of the verb, right? Me voy a levantar, or I can attach it to the end of the infinitive. Voy a levantarme. I can do either one. I've got a little bit of leeway with where the word me goes because of using two verbs right next to each other. Okay, I have a choice. Okay, a ver. Siguiente, adelante, moving on. Vamos a ver, let's take a look at these. Las acciones. One of these indicates irse, one indicates caerse, one is talking about referirse. Let's see if you can pair them up with the right action.
Irse, tres.
Irse. Uno, dos o tres.
Tres.
Número tres. Número tres. Sí, a ver. Es número tres. Ok, a ver. Irse. Let's move that down. Los refugiados. Los pobres de Ucrania. The poor folks in Ukraine. Okay. Las personas. The people are getting out. ¿Cómo se dice? Las personas.
Se van.
Se van. Yeah. And notice with se van, usually it's just se van and boom, that's it. Se van, they leave. We normally, under most circumstances, don't name a place, you know. It'll just be se van. They're taken off. They're going away. They're going away. In English, we have to insert that extra word away. In Spanish, you don't need the extra word away. You just need se van. You just need the se in front of the verb. Se van. Las personas se van. ¿Sí? Las personas se van porque viven en una zona de guerra. They're taken off because they live in a war zone. A ver, okay, bueno. Caerse. Which verb fits with caerse? Which action? ¿Cuál? ¿Cuál es la foto?
Uno.
Uno, sí. A ver, muy bien. Muy bien. Vale, caerse. ¿Cómo se dice? The man is falling. Oh, en inglés, in English. Caer is to fall. So if something just falls off, you know, of your desk, falls off of your shelf, that's caer, right? But caerse is to fall down. Oh, look, in English, we needed away for irse, but in English, now we use down for caerse. Yeah, caerse. El hombre
Se cae.
se cae. He falls down. Se cae en el hielo. He's falling on the ice. Se cae en la nieve. He's falling on the snow. Se cae en el hielo. Yeah, usually it's ice, right? El hombre se cae en el hielo. Falls down. We have go away, but fall down. Okay, bien, curioso, curious. I think in English we call those phrasal verbs. And yeah, it's just an odd thing that we use in English. And, you know, in English, you just have to kind of figure that out. So, interesante, interesting that here is a verb that is often used when people say, what do you mean? What do you mean? Would be expressed this way. ¿A qué? To what are you referring yourself? ¿A qué? How would we change referirse? And this is our little vowel that will need the stem change right here. The IE will come in here. How would we use this for tú? ¿A qué? Refieres. ¿A qué te refieres? This is a good conversational chunk to know. What do you mean? What are you talking about? What do you mean? ¿A qué te refieres? ¿A qué te refieres? Bien. Okay. Vale. Siguiente. We've got 3 different verbs. Tenemos aquí 3 verbos. Quedarse, quitarse, ponerse. Let's see if we can match them up with the right action. Con la foto. ¿Sí? Quedarse. Quedarse es número 2. Vale. Sí, bien. Quedarse. Quedarse, and quedar is a very special verb too, because it's used in a lot of different senses. But quedarse generally means to stay with, or to stay, it might be with, or to stay in a place, meaning like you're talking about your lodging, where you're actually living, usually in a temporary sense, right? Y por eso tenemos aquí la almohada con Hilton, ¿sí? Un hotel, ¿ok? ¿Cómo se dice? They're staying at the Hilton. Ellos Se quedan. Ellos se quedan en el hotel Hilton. Ellos se quedan en el hotel Hilton. ¿Sí? Bien. If they were staying with their aunts and uncles, it would be ellos se quedan con with sus tíos. ¿Sí? O se quedan en la casa de sus tíos. They're staying in their aunts and uncles' house. Okay. So quedarse is to stay in a place. Okay. A ver, quitarse. Quitarse. Uno o tres. Tres. This is to take something off of your body. Aquí tenemos un par de zapatos. ¿Cómo se dice she's taking off her shoes? Ella se quita
Los zapatos.
los zapatos. And generally when we're talking about takes off her shoes, I know in English we usually say her shoes, but most of the time we won't say her with shoes. For parts of the body, like arms, hands, feet, or articles of clothing you wear on your body, generally we use the words, okay? So it won't be ella se quita sus zapatos in most cases. It'll be ella se quita los zapatos. It'll usually be los zapatos. It'll only be sus zapatos if you're really emphasizing, her shoes instead of the guy's shoes, if you're making a distinction. It'll usually be los zapatos. Y aquí, okay, lo único que podemos tener aquí, the only thing we got left here is ponerse con la foto número 1 y vamos a cambiar el color aquí para ver, ponerse. Oh, she's putting on a shirt. Ella
Se pone
una camisa. Ella se pone una camisa blanca. Bien, ella se pone una camisa blanca. Bien, okay, a ver. So doing it to oneself. Okay, adelante. Ooh, we've got 3 that are a little bit more difficult here. And this is why this is the last batch, okay? Reunirse and momento. That's not a stem change, perdón. Un error. I was going to use a different verb, and I left that in. Reunirse, encontrarse, saludarse. Reunirse means to get together, right? To meet up with, yeah? Like have a meeting, have a get together, right? Encontrarse is used in a number of ways, but this is the equivalent for, it is often used as an equivalent for ¿cómo estás? How are you? And saludarse is to greet. Bien, okay. A ver, okay. ¿Con qué foto corresponde? And this is a little bit nuanced, so it might be a little bit. Reunirse, which one should we best match this up with?
Dos.
Exacto. Okay. A ver. Entonces, ¿Cómo se dice? Let's change this to say, they get together to work. To work together.
Okay.
Ellos
Se.
Se
reúnen, and that's going to need a little accent mark. Don't worry about that. Just know. Ellos se reúnen, because when I heard you say it, you said it correctly. Ellos se reúnen para, in order to, and trabajar, or you might say colaborar. This verb in Spanish is a very, very favored word when you want to say that you're working on something in a team with people. Colaborar, we have collaborate. We don't use collaborate all the time. Sometimes collaborate has a nefarious meaning. Sometimes it has just a cooperative meaning, but coordinating, yeah. You always get the idea of coordinating with colaborar. And colaborar is a word that is very, very much favored when you talk about working together. So, ellos se reúnen para trabajar. Ellos se reúnen para colaborar. Perfecto. Okay. Vale. Encontrarse. We're going to ask the question, how are you? Uno o tres. Tres. Perfecto. Okay. Vamos a ver. Let's figure out how to ask the question as how are you doing? But we're going to ask it in a friendly way. And instead of ¿cómo estás? We're going to ask it as ¿cómo? Oop. And we're going to use it for as tú. ¿Cómo te encuentras? ¿Cómo te encuentras? ¿Cómo te encuentras? How do you find yourself? But literally, how are you doing? Right? How are you doing is ¿cómo te encuentras? And encontrarse is often used that way. So now we're left with this by itself. And this is a plain old vanilla verb, no step changes. But we are going to use it reflexively. We're going to say the two people greet each other. Los dos. Saludarse. Los dos, the two people, and we can just say it as los dos.
Se.
We need to say saludan, yeah. Saludar comes from the same root we get the word salute from. And when military people salute someone, right, they are literally greeting or maybe saying goodbye, right? But usually greeting somebody, it's an acknowledgement of that person's presence. And saludarse is an acknowledgement of that person's presence. You're saying hi, you're greeting them. Se saludan. Los dos se saludan. Bien? Okay. Vale? How are we doing so far? See? Bien? Okay. No es tan difícil. Not really that hard. But for those of you who are a little more advanced, actually, we're going to play the very tail end of this video. Verbs that use se might have different hidden meanings, right? And there's going to do a sum up, and I'll send you the link to this whole video where they show more nuances of se. Some of them exactly what we talked about, and some a little bit different. But they're going to do a sum up here, and I'm going to show this to you with subtitles.
¿Me puedes explicar o darme un resumen de las tres maneras en que se puede afectar los verbos en español?
Okay, he's going to do a summary, and I'll send this so that you watch the whole video, because that little se of a verb being reflexive, they go through 3 different ways that se might be used, the ways that se can affect verbs in Spanish.
Español. Pues sí, vamos a ello.
Let's get to it.
El primer grupo de verbos está formado por verbos que, cuando se les añade el pronombre se, obtienen un sentido reflexivo.
So now first he's going to say out of these 3 ways that se can affect a verb, one is straight out reflexive. The action that person does, recae, falls back. It comes back to that person who's actually doing it.
Significa que la acción recae sobre uno mismo. Después está el grupo número 2. Este grupo está formado por verbos que, cuando obtienen el pronombre se, cambian completamente su significado.
And sometimes se completely changes the meaning of the verb. A little bit like moverse, but we'll take a look at a couple. Actually, you'll see a couple of examples of those if you watch his whole video as your homework. And now he's going to go through the third one.
Este grupo está formado por verbos que, cuando se les añade el pronombre se, obtienen un refuerzo. Se les da una cierta intensidad en la...
And the other way you may hear se is that thing of putting an intensity on the verb. And by that, he means this idea of comerse. Comerse does not mean I'm eating myself, but comerse means to eat something up, meaning you're kind of inhaling your food. You're eating it all. You're eating everything. First of all, comerse would mean you're eating all of it and you're just, boom, gobbling it up, right? When you say, oh, look at all these things, fall down, go away, eat up, really? Why? Why is it in English, eat up? Eat it all up. But you know that eat is a little bit different. It has a nuance versus eat up. And comerse is eat it up, gobble it up. Beberse is chug it down. Chug it down because it goes in this direction, but eat we use with up. I mean, really, does that make any sense at all in English? It really doesn't. Pero es así, but it is that way. Okay, so these little reflexives are odd in a number of ways because they can do some odd or funky things. Okay, and I'm going to show you now one of the other uses of se, because quite often, you know, like I said to you, se can have many different meanings, and I'll be sending this whole set to you. Ojo means eye, but that means watch out. Ojo, watch out. Se has many, se tiene muchos sentidos. Se has many meanings. And so, in other words, what we're saying to you is get used to how we use se, but we cannot really divorce it from the context of all the other words it is sticking with, it is hanging with. We cannot divorce it from context. Se has many uses. Sometimes it is reciprocal, meaning that people do the action to each other, and you'll see examples of that in the video, right? Se sometimes also, here's one thing I don't want to leave out, but I want to throw this in. Sometimes when you hear the word se, it really takes on an idea more of like a passive voice. And by that, I mean kind of like saying that not you, the one person you, but the kind of impersonal you, someone is doing an action. And so sometimes you hear se used in this way, and you won't hear it as the me hablo, for example, with or me hablo or te hablas. It'll just be se habla español, and that means Spanish is spoken. Or or we use the idea of one does this, one speaks Spanish. En París, por ejemplo, en París se habla francés. In France, in Paris, one speaks French. One speaks French, but we might, instead of, because one speaks sounds kind of formal in English, kind of hoity-toity. You know, one speaks is kind of like the hold my finger out. One drinks tea in London. Yeah, that kind of thing. We don't say that very much, but en París se habla francés. In Paris, you in general speak French, or we change that over to what we call passive voice. Spanish is spoken, French is spoken. Se habla español, se habla francés, is spoken. Se abre a las 8. It opens at 8, meaning a shop or a store or a museum, you know, some kind of official building. Se abre, it opens. It is opened at a certain time. Se usa la copa para beber. You use the glass to drink, right? Just se puede. Yes, you can. You can, he can, she can, anybody at all can. Se puede, se puede. Bien, se venden flores. Flowers are sold. Flowers are for sale. They sell flowers. So se can also be used in the sense of all these verbs as kind of a sort of a passive voice, saying that people in general do something. Yeah, this is another use of se. And this, se dice ayuda. You say help. Se dice, you say, or one says. See? It's the idea of one does something. In one, or you, the impersonal you, does something. Something is done. So se has another job in Spanish of all these possible little things. So sadly, sadly has a lot of, sadly has a lot of jobs. And again, like you heard in the video with the cooking, a ver. You heard another verb which was used as quemar. Otra vez. We're going to give you one more example here. Cuidado con no quemarse. Be careful not to burn yourself. This is a true reflexive, right? Not you're burning the food, yeah, but you burn a part of your body. Here's a true reflexive verb, quemarse. Cuidado de no quemarse. Careful not to burn yourself. And they're not talking about burning the food. Quemarse means to burn a part of your body, your hand, your arm, your fingers, yeah? So a good idea would be to go back to this video and watch it una vez más, ¿sí? Ver el video una vez más and listen for a couple little reflexives that are buried in there. They're always kind of buried in the middle. Yeah, and you'll see them just here and there. Okay, ¿alguna pregunta? Any kind of question on reflexives?
That reflexive verb, quemarse, you can't change that around to say you burn, like te
quemas?
Yeah.
Te quemas?
Yeah.
Te quemas means burn
You could
yourself,
do that, right?
part of your body.
Okay.
But I might also say, Mamá, mamá quemó los frijoles. Mom burned the beans. Yeah, when you burned a food because you overcooked it, yeah, that's just quemar. Or you know, he burned his papers, he burned something, yeah. That's to burn an item. Usually it's used with food, right? No quema, por ejemplo, no quemes la carne, don't burn the meat. No quemes, when you're giving it as a command. No quemes la carne, don't burn the meat, like you're out barbecuing, right? But no te quemes, don't burn yourself, meaning don't hurt yourself. And yeah. It's
Is the reflexive better to use in that circumstance? Like she used
yeah,
it?
if you're talking about burning a part of your a portion of your body, it's got to be quemarse.
Okay.
Yeah, that's got to be quemarse.
Okay.
Quemar is for burning an item.
Okay.
And usually food. Although I guess strictly if you were building a campfire, it could be something else, right? But yeah, usually food. Eso es, that is, yeah. Okay. A ver, otra pregunta. Any other question?
I have a question on one of the videos, and they talked about those sneakers are very comfortable. And I would have thought it would be esos tenis son muy cómodos, but they use se ve que esos. What does that say?
Oh, se ve. Yes.
Yeah, what is that?
Sí, se ve. Yeah, a ver, okay. Let me try to get to the right portion of the video. Yeah, oh, I don't know if I will be able to get to the right. Oh, you know what? Vale la pena. This is actually kind of worth it to take a quick look at this. That third video you had is, oh, I don't know that I'm going to find the right portion.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's okay.
a ver, se ve. Let me pull this up on a screen. Se ve. Can you see my blank screen here?
Yes.
Sí, okay, se ve. Los zapatos, the shoes. Los zapatos se ven. Yeah. And really, we would use something like this to say, the shoes look a certain way. Okay, por ejemplo, for example, los zapatos se ven grandes. Wow, those shoes look like too big, yeah? What they would mean is too big, yeah? Or, people might use verse. You might say verse. Well, ver means to look or to see, right? And does it mean to see yourself? Does it mean to see yourself? Well, no. Verse is used in a really specific way. Verse means to look a certain way. So, por ejemplo, here's how you will most commonly, and you may often hear this when people are commenting on how you physically look. They might say, te ves muy cansada. Wow, you look really tired. See? Te ves muy bien. Wow. You're looking good. Yeah, te ves muy bien. Te ves muy delgada en ese vestido. You look really thin or slender or slim, however you want to express that. In that dress. Yeah. Verse is often used to say you look a certain way. Somebody is, lamenting that they think something is wrong with you. They might no te ves muy bien. You don't look so good. Yeah. Some reflexive verbs are strictly reflexive. I do the action and I do it to myself. Me levanto, I get up. Me siento, I sit down. Some, like ver means by itself to see, but verse means something looks a certain way. And that really changes the meaning of ver quite a lot. So when they talked in that video about, really changing the meaning of the verb, verse is a good example of exactly that kind of thing. Verse really changes the meaning quite a lot, yeah?
Okay.
Buena pregunta, really good question. There are just, so, por ejemplo, right, she, in that video about clothing, she used ponerse, and, putting things on, and quitarse, but yeah, verse is something looks a certain way. Okay, vale, bien, perfecto. Good that you picked up on that, because it's quirky, isn't it? It is very, very quirky. Okay, bien. We'll do a little more. I'll give you some ideas to finish up. The new video you're going to get, actually, I think I'm going to give you two videos. One is kind of a cultural video. It's called Read Between the Lines in Spanish, and it talks about really from a perspective of Mexican culture, how things are not always what they seem. And if any of you are soon going to take a vacation in Mexico, this is actually a very good thing to know. And she's going to talk in the video about how now doesn't always mean now. Tomorrow doesn't always mean tomorrow. Perception of time. She talks a lot about the aversion Mexican culture in general has to refusing someone, to saying no to somebody. They really dance around the topic of saying straight out no. And she's going to talk about how Mexican culture is una cultura muy indirecta. It's a very indirect way of expressing oneself. If somebody turns you down for an invitation, they will do it in such a way that you almost think they're coming, actually, for your invitation. So, vale la pena. It's worth it. It's a fun video, and it's good for listening comprehension. And as we have a perspective on breakfast in Mexico, you're also going to get a listening comprehension video on what people eat in Spain for breakfast, right? Foods are not the same all over. I guess they're both cultural videos. Food is not the same all over. Mexican food is not the same as food in Argentina, is not the same as food in Colombia, is not the same as food in Spain. And so just as you got breakfast in Mexico, you're going to get breakfast in Spain. And then we'll get some conversational questions to, again, use some reflexives. Bien?
Bien.
¿Todo bien?
Bien.
Okay,
Bien.
fantástico. Eso es, that is it. Oh, and we're up at our 11 o'clock hour. So, okay, eso es. That's it for today. Okay, nos vemos. If there's some other issue you need to ask about, always include it in your questions, of course. And I'll send you the little extra videos, the extra one on reflexives and the 2 listening items. One just cultural things with Mexico, one with breakfast in Spain. ¿Todo bien?
Bien.
Okay. Bueno, nos vemos. We'll see you guys. And I'll try to categorize some of these reflexives into some things that you can use and finish off some ideas for next week. Okay. Todo bien. Gracias.